Hey there! Welcome to Spectrum Pulse, where we talk about music, movies, art, and culture. And today we got the newest project from De La Soul, Cabin in the Sky. There are two ways I could begin this review, and the first being highlighting what Mass Appeal has done throughout the course of this year, putting out 7 albums from elder statesmen in rap under their Legend Has It series. With the sort of fanfare and critical attention you could argue these veterans of hip-hop deserve. And I got a lot of thoughts around it. Like any curated collection, it's always revealing who's included and who is not. When you could argue that some of these projects may have dropped anyway on their own, but they're conveniently bucketed into this series, looking right at Ghostface Killah's Supreme Clientele sequel or that new Raekwon album, or in the case of that really mediocre posthumous Big L album, or that Mobb Deep project after Prodigy's passing, whether they should have been dropped at all, there's a question there. And indeed, there's also a reason why I've largely not covered them. There's a place for veterans doing what they do well, but I had zero expectations they would be pushing new ground, showing a greater breadth of maturity, or a creative spark that was worth more of my examination, worth the time of that review. If you've heard late period Ghostface Killah, and you know how these long overdue sequel albums work, you would already know exactly what Supreme Clientele 2 sounds like. And it's probably going to be a similar case for that Nas and DJ Premier project, even it's been teased for a decade now. But there was always going to be one exception. After a long 9 years since the thoroughly underrated and the Anonymous Nobody in 2016, De La Soul was coming back 2 years after the unfortunate passing of Trugoy the Dove, gone too soon. Even with the knowledge that we would be getting some posthumous verses and production, at first, yeah, I was reticent to cover this too, but then I remembered seeing De La Soul live in 2024 in Chicago at Pitchfork Festival, and both Posthumous and Masio were awesome, and they had terrific chemistry with everyone they brought out, including Pharoah. If there was a group that proved that they could still continue to deliver a terrific old school rap with a stocked cadre of features and producers, it's them. And especially after the grueling effort to acquire all the rights of their music back throughout the late 2010s and early 2020s, I really wanted to love and celebrate this album. They've certainly earned it. And you know what? I do really like this. It's great. It's a ton of fun. But if there's an album that feels more like a restatement of purpose rather than treading new ground for De La Soul, I'd argue it's this one. Let's go back to And the Anonymous Nobody, because it never got its proper due in its day, especially alongside the critically acclaimed final album from their native tongues peers at Tribe Called Quest, mostly because, well, it's a weird, genre-bending beast of an album, full of odd guest features and going down a lot of strange rabbit holes that don't always work, but it's stuffed full of fascinating meta-commentary that never got the proper appraisal, and a thematic focus that makes its strongest moments genuinely spellbinding. I still hold it's one of the 25 best albums of 2016. A stacked year. But even when I reviewed that album 9 years ago, I highlighted how it was getting an odd reception because, let's face it, a lot of fans and critics were expecting something more in line with the rest of De La Soul's catalog, rather than something so tangled and experimental and self-referential. Now, I could highlight as early as De La Soul is Dead, an album that only continues to grow on me with age. That's been a thematic undercurrent for the band for years, that meta-commentary. But look, the point is that Cabin in the Sky is likely going to satisfy those critics way more. It still has some odd pivots, but it feels way more immediately approachable. Right from the intro with Giancarlo Esposito calling out everyone showing up for the ride. From Common, Black Thought, and Killer Mike to Nas, Q-Tip, and Slick Rick. Production spanning DJ Premier and Pete Rock to long-running collaborators like Super Dave West and even the late Trugoy himself. Now, this is something I immensely appreciated as someone who, again, very skeptical with posthumous albums, and that it became very clear that instead of being a cash-in on someone's memory, this was a project that De La Soul was working on as a trio for a number of years, including some songs clearly finished before Trugoy's passing. Even if I can also tell there are some fidelity blends to capture some unfinished moments that feel a little patchy, like on Good Health and The Package. snapshots intentionally left rough to emphasize what was lost, even if I just love the wordplay and Pete Rock's soul flip on the package enough to look past that. But while there is a genuine sadness at Trugoy's loss that permeates some moments like the second verse on Different World, alongside the exhausting struggle to beat back some staggering music industry bullshit, and if there's a group that's earned the right to rant about that, it's De La Soul, and the sample mashup on Cruel Summers Bring Fire Life feels like a gleeful middle finger in their face, there's also this buoyant energy off the bassy knock and cheerful guitar loop of, say, Day in the Sun with Q-Tip fitting on so perfectly, and even real tangible humor, the sort of effortlessly cool and groove-driven slice of life braggadociousness and middle-aged candor that you expect from rap legends at their age, as You Don't Stop makes it abundantly clear early on the album amidst the gorgeous swells of strings that Trugoy produced, if they slow down or stop, Dave stops. And they ain't about to do their brother like that. Despite the eyes cast towards heaven and remembrance for him across this album, it's also no final album. So you'll get tracks like A Quick 16 for Mama with Killer Mike that pays tribute to mothers, but then ends with a genuinely hilarious deconstruction of that in the sample that follows, just as Just How It Is sometimes shows a heartbroken woman burning her ex from social media with the sort of patience that kind of comes with acknowledging we all have to act out and be emotional sometimes, including the older fellow at the end getting roundly blasted, and it is righteously hilarious. Love that whole sequence. And in tribute to how De La Soul is also absolutely for the kids, Patty Cake is the rare layered nursery rhyme flip that bends its clapping percussion into the sort of street-level parable that lands only how they possibly could. Really love that too. Of course, I'm also not about to ignore the moments where the sheer playful wordplay careens through, like when Poss and Nas go back-to-back over Preem-reversing samples as Nas reflects on the past and future balance of art and commerce. And look, as much as I've had fun with all of this, around that point, there are two consistent problems I couldn't fully escape, and for some it's not going to be problems at all, I admit that. The first being that despite the album's bounce and momentum, the more serious-leaning back half can't help but drag a bit. It ends really well with an excellent 1-2 punch with the title track, and a Trugoy cut that feels so earned and potent as the closer, and I know that after 9 years they've certainly earned that space, and De La Soul albums always run long, if you know you know, but you can feel a sober slowdown where the lecture of NF with Black Thought isn't bad but starts feeling a bit tired, especially when it's followed by the gospel rap of Believe in Him and Palm of His Hand, though Yours with Common and Slick Rip updating the latter's Hey Young World is a bit more hopeful and wise than some of the advice of the kids coming up. I mean, they couldn't do better, they were kids too. And the second issue, well, I began this review discussing why I've been a little bit reticent on Mass Appeal's canonization of legends in rap by basically having them do what they can always do and have it just stand as self-evident why they're great. Where if I described this as a very middle-aged De La Soul album, you'd probably know exactly what the content and sound is, for better or for worse. And as much as I really like this album, that assessment is more true about this than any other project from them, and that has me longing for more of the creative weirdness to pop through. It reminds me that rap's middle age is, ironically, quite similar to that of any other genre, but especially rock or country or R&B. On the plus side, it can be mature or tasteful, reminds you that the classics, and that they do still have it, but you can find yourself wishing that the original spark could explode more freely and not feel so beholden to legacy. I'd argue May the Lord Watch by Little Brother in 2019, it's probably the best example of that sticking the landing as a late career work. And the only reason I'm more tolerant of it with De La Soul is that, well, A, they mostly remember to keep it loose and fun, they don't double down on the obvious, it was all better in my days conservatism, and B, given how much a lot of the commercial fruits of legacy have been denied from De La Soul or outright stolen, I'll give more grace to them resting on their laurels. But in short, Cabin in the Sky is comfortably great. Feeling like a reset of the table for the next stage of them going forward. I hope to hear more albums from them soon. Maybe even transitional, re-established bearings before the next big experimental adventure, while paying proper tribute to Trugoy the Dove through the art he made possible. It's in the moments that feel unburdened, or at least accepting of burdens carried, that this album's at its absolute best. And for that, yeah, you know what, I'm gonna stick up and recommend it. Really incredibly easy to recommend, especially for longtime fans. Yeah. You should check this out, y'all. It's great. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you want to see more, please be sure to like, share, drop comments, subscribe. I really did enjoy this album. It does strike me that I probably could have covered some of those Mass Appeal albums before, because I did hear Supreme Clientele too. It was good, not great for me. I have Supreme Clientele at a pretty high level alongside Fish Scale, and some of these long overdue sequel albums, they rarely turn out as well as you would hope, especially if they're not really trying to keep up with the times, so they're always a little more long-winded than they should be. But again, some of them really don't work. That Big L album, you come out of retirement for that, Joe Budden? Really? But anyway, beyond that, leave your comments down there below. Anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, I'm all ears. And if y'all want to get albums into my schedule before the end of this year, it's this Saturday. Please check out my Patreon and YouTube memberships. You could also argue with me on my Discord or just support the channel, but again, this is the last weekend to possibly get albums on that I might have missed throughout the course of the year. Don't feel obligated, tough times out there, recession's coming, but the option's available. Till then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.